So once you've right-clicked on the form IMM5257E, this is the Adobe form that will open up to you. What you need to do is just double-click on the little push pin right here, and if you double-click, it will open up your form that you need to complete for your visitor's visa, your temporary resident visa, TRV. Just make sure that you have the right form. There is the Schedule 1 of this form as well, so make sure there's no Schedule 1 indicated here. The form name is IMM5257E for English. And all you have to do is go through this form and complete it. Make sure that it's correct. Validate it. Make sure that it states validated yes here. And then you can save it on your desktop and upload it with your application. So I'm going to quickly take you through what they need from you in this form, just for you to have a basic idea before you get started, so you can get all your information together and be ready to action when you've downloaded this form. So the information that you need to complete here is your UCI number. Always supply this number if you have it. If you have completed any application for a Canada visa before, you would have a UCI number. So always include this number right over here. Then they ask you, I want service in which language, English or French is the only two available. Now you can choose here whichever one you're most comfortable in. The reason they ask you this is if they have to interview you, they need to know what to prepare for. So if you've stated English here, then they know that an English person can do the interview with you. If you stated French, they will get a French person to do the interview with you. So this is just the only reason why they ask you this question. Then the visa requested, if you do the drop down, it will give you a visitor's visa or a transit visa. So this form is for only these two options. So you're going to do a visitor visa, so you select that one. And then it's all your personal details that they need. So they need your family name, which is also your last name or your surname. Please make sure that you complete this form as per your official passport or travel document, because if it doesn't match what is on your passport, it will create an issue and they will have to get more information from you, and that will delay your whole process. So please ensure that you do complete the form as per your passport or travel document. Your given name or names, depending on how many you have, list them all here. The next question is, have you ever used any other name? So if you have a maiden name or an alias that you've gone under, then please provide the family name here as well as your given names. If they are different from the ones shown here, just include the different ones, or if it's the same, just include it again to confirm. Then they'll ask you what sex you are, female, male, unknown, or another gender, so you can choose which one is applicable to you. Please know that this is what is currently shown on your official document. If you were given a male allocation when you were born, and this is what's currently on your documentation, then please ensure that you select the same here. It might have changed, but currently that is what's on your official documents. That's what they need you to fill in here. Then they need your date of birth, which is the year, month, and day. The place of birth, so the town that you were born in or the city that's on your birth certificate stipulated, as well as the country or territory by the drop down here. And you can, if it's United States, for instance, you can just type U on your keyboard and it will take you to the U's. It unfortunately doesn't take more than one letter, so you can just go to the start and then scroll down to United States of America, and there you have it. Then your citizenship is also a drop down where you can just choose whichever citizen you are. And then the next question is your current country or territory of residence. Now, this is where you currently live. So you can choose with the drop down the country and then your status in that country. Are you a citizen? Are you a permanent resident, a visitor, worker, student, other? If you say other, you need to complete more information under the other section here. Protected person or a refugee claimant. There's more if you go down here. There's also foreign national. So if you are currently in Canada on a work or student permit, then just choose whichever is suitable here, and then you will choose under your country, Canada. Then you need to also supply your from and to. So if you're currently here as a worker on a work permit, and then also if you choose not the other option, then this will be grayed out, so you don't need to include anything else there. So if you're currently on a worker's permit, then you would just put from date and then to when it expires, so they can see until when your current permit is valid. And then here it's also in the format year, month, and day. So you can also just, if you apply, you can just put today's date here, and then when your work permit expires, say for instance in a year's time, you can include what the expiry date on your permit stipulates. So the next one is your previous countries or territory of residence during the past 5 years. It's only the last 5 years that they want to know. Have you lived in any country or territory other than your country of citizenship or your current country of residence? So say for instance, like in my case, I'm from South Africa, so that is my country of citizenship, but I'm currently in Canada on a work permit, so my country of residence is Canada. Then I don't include those two here. I just state anywhere else. So if you've been for more than 6 months, remember it's for the last 5 years, and if you have been more than 6 months in that country, you stipulate it here. Say for instance, you were on a work permit in the US, then you would put that right over here. And you would say yes or no. If you say no, it will gray everything out and you don't have to include or insert anything there. If you say yes, you can just add whatever you have here. They only provide you with 2 lines. So if you need more than these, you can just add it on your explanation later, the letter that you're going to add with your application as optional additional documents, just to state where else you have been in the last 5 years for more than 6 months. Otherwise, you just complete whatever you have. If it's no, just select no. Then your country or territory where applying. So they want to know where are you applying from. They say same as current country or territory of residence, yes or no. So this is where you're currently residing. If you're in Canada and you're applying from Canada, then you say yes, and that will gray out all the blocks. Otherwise, if you're not currently in Canada, but you're actually living in Canada currently, then you say no, and then you can drop down and fill in where you are applying from. So we are applying from Canada and we're in Canada, so it will just gray everything out. Then your current marital status. On the drop down, you will choose your option: annulled marriage, common law, divorced, legally separated, married, single, unknown, or widowed. So just choose whichever is applicable to you. If you're married, then they will need the information of your spouse right here. They also ask if you are married or in a common law relationship, provide the date on which you were married or entered into the common law relationship. So they need the date here, the year, month, and day, the family name, surname, or last name of your spouse, as well as their given names. And if you say single here, it's just going to gray everything out and you don't need to complete anything. Also, if you are widowed or anything like that, they will also legally separate it. They won't ask you anything here. If you do widowed, they won't ask you anything there. Please do not write anything in this space. This is for the officials to write some remarks here, so don't put anything in this area. Then we move on to the next page, and you'll see if you completed the first page, it will put your name in here, the applicant name. It will include your name as well as your date of birth on the second page. We haven't completed anything in there, so it doesn't bring anything through, but you'll see once you've completed it, it will automatically fill that in for you. Then your personal details. Have you previously been married or in a common law relationship? Yes or no? So if you have previously been married, you would say yes, and then you would need to complete your previous spouse's details, as well as their date of birth, the type of relationship you were in, a common law or married, as well as from until when. Then the languages. They want to know if they have an interview with you and they need to get an interpreter to speak to you during the interview, they know immediately which person to get for you to be interviewed with. So that's why they ask you the languages here, and you can just go through and see which language applies to you and then complete that. Then they also ask you, are you able to communicate in English and or French? So if you can do English, just select that, otherwise French. If you can do both, select that, or neither, please select that. So just choose whichever is applicable from the list below. This is just for in case they need to interview you, they want to be prepared and they want to make it as smooth as possible for both sides and as easy as possible to get the information that they need, because we all know they are very busy. So please make sure that you select whichever is the correct one here, so they can be prepared and help you as much as they can. Then they also ask you, have you taken a test from a designated testing agency to assess your proficiency in English or French? Now you can say yes or no here. So if you've done the IELTS test, indicate yes. If you haven't done any test, just say no. This is also just to know that you are proficient in one of these languages. Then you have your passport details that you need to complete here. This is the number that's on your current passport that you're going to apply with to have your visa inserted into. So supply your passport number right there. The drop down here. Please make sure that, like for South Africa, it's not under S, because it's actually the code that they use. So South Africa would be under Z for ZAF, South Africa, Republic of. So just make sure yours might have that issue as well. So you can just make sure that you select the correct one right there. Then the issue date of your passport, as well as the expiry date. Then they want to know, for this trip, will you use a passport issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Taiwan that includes your personal identification number? So you can select yes or no here. If you've selected, say for instance, South Africa in this top one, and you've provided all the information, these will be grayed out. Otherwise, just complete this here, yes or no, and then they will gray it out immediately. Your national identity document. Not everybody has this. If you have one, say yes, add the document number right there, the country with the drop down, as well as the issue date and the expiry date over here. And if you don't have, just say no and it will gray everything out. Then they want to know if you have a permanent residence in the USA. So if you have a green card, yes or no. So you can just say yes or no here. If you say no, it's just going to gray these out. If you do have a green card and you say yes, they would need the document number as well as the expiry date. Otherwise, it's grayed out. Then they need your contact information. They need to know how to get a hold of you, and if they need more information, contact you to get the information that they need. And if you're submitting your application by mail, they will contact you by mail unless you provide an email address. As they stipulate here, all correspondence will go to this address unless you indicate your email address below. Indicating an email address will authorize all correspondence, including file and personal information, to be sent to the address you supply. Or you specify. So make sure that it's your own address. If you don't want your personal information to go to, a cousin or whoever else that you have the email address for, don't include their email address if you don't want them to receive the information. Otherwise, just do the normal mailing address, the snail mail. Otherwise, if you do provide an email address, they will communicate with you via that email address. So if you wish to authorize the release of information from your application to a representative, indicating their email or mailing address in this section, and on the IMM5476 form. So if you yourself isn't going to handle your application, there's no need to use an agent because you can process all of this yourself. It is quite straightforward if you know what to do. So you don't need to have an agent do this for you. You can do it yourself. But if you're going through an agent or using somebody else to help you with it, then you can indicate their email address as well as their mailing address. But then you need to make sure that you complete the IMM5476 form, which is authorizing that person to deal with your things on your behalf. You can add your mailing address right here, which is your PO box number, your apartment or unit number, the street number, and then the street name. The city, the country or territory is a drop down again, and then the province or state in that country, and then the postal code as well as the district. If your residential address is not the same, you can just click no, and then you can complete this section right here. Or if it's the same as what you've already completed at the top, you can just say yes, and it will gray this section out. Then they need to have your telephone number. If it's a Canadian or a US number or another number, your local number from your country of residence, just indicate here and then add the number, or you can say other and then add the number. So you can decide which one you're going to use. If you're currently in Canada, just put your Canada number in here, as well as an alternate number. You can also add an additional number, maybe your spouse's number, or in case they can't reach you, they have an alternative number to phone. And also if it's a business line, then just put your extension. Fax number, if anybody is still using a fax. Government organizations do currently still use a lot of faxing, which is strange but true. So if you have a fax number, by all means include it here. You don't have to have one, and you don't need one. They mostly will communicate with you via email if you have supplied an email address, which is what you do here at number 6. Just make sure that you insert the email address correctly. Then we move on to the details of your visit to Canada. This is where they want to know what is the purpose of my visit. So they have a drop down where they have business, tourism, short-term studies, returning student, returning worker, a super visa for a parent or grandparent, other, and if you choose other, you need to specify in this section here, or a family visit. So if you are currently in Canada on a work permit, you would just say returning worker, or if you're a student, if you have a student permit, you will just say returning student. If you choose other, obviously you need to fill the other section in, otherwise it will just be grayed out. Then they want to know, indicate how long you plan to stay. So if you are currently in Canada on a work or a study permit, just put today's date and then until when your permit is valid. That is until to date. So from today's date, because you can't have it blank, you have to include a date right over here. So just do it as today's date and then until your permit expires. Then they also want to know, do you have funds available to you for your stay? So whatever funds you have available currently, this is funds that is currently in a bank account that you can draw today to use today. So you have to have access to the money. It can't be money that's sitting in somebody else's account or in a loan, that you're still going to apply for. It needs to be available money, because that's why it says available. So just include the amount there, whatever it is. Then they want to know the name or address and relationship of any person or institution I will visit. So if you are a worker or student, you can just put the name of your company or your institution that you're currently studying at right over here. The relationship to me is either employer or university or whatever college you want to put in there, as well as the address in Canada. So for a worker, you would say your company name here, relationship to me, employer, and their address. They give you space for 2 to complete, but you don't have to complete both. You can just complete your company if you're a worker, or your college or university if you're a student. Then the education. They ask, have you had any post-secondary education, including university, college, or apprenticeship training? So you need to say yes or no. And if you answer yes, then give the details in the fields below. So if you've been to university, then just say yes, and you can include from when until when, and your field of study, your city or town where you studied, the school or facility name, the university or college, your country or territory. Choose from the drop down which applies to you, and that is it for that section. And then we get to the employment section. Give details of your employment for the past 10 years. So they want to know who you worked for the past 10 years. This is including if you have held any government positions, so do not leave gaps. And if you retired, not working or studying, please indicate. If you are retired, please provide 10 years before your retirement. So you can complete all of that. They need to know from until. So if you're currently working for a company, you're going to say the date that you started there, and if it's current, you just leave it blank. You don't have to include A2 in that section because you're currently in that position. You need to also indicate the current activity or your occupation, what you're currently doing, the company, your employer or the facility name, your city or town, the country or territory, as well as the province or state. So if you're in Canada, you're going to go to the drop down to Canada, and if you're in British Columbia, you're going to select BC, and you can include Vancouver or whatever is necessary there. And then include all of the other, your previous occupations or activities. If you were a student, just include your college or university right over here. Please remember to go back for the period of 10 years. They only provide you with 3 sections here. So if you need to provide more information, you can always add it on your explanation letter that you're going to attach to your application to explain additional information that they might need. But they have space for the last 3. Then background information, you must complete this section if you are 18 years of age and older. This is very important. Please make sure that you indicate correctly, because they can, follow up on these things. There's, these days, there's easy ways to check if information is correct or not. So please don't lie on your application. It's never a good idea. Just tell the truth and, give explanations in your explanation letter if you need to explain why it was or what happened. So they want to know, within the past 2 years, have you or a family member ever had tuberculosis of the lungs or been in close contact with a person with tuberculosis? So it's going to be yes or no. If it's yes, they'll ask you to explain in this block here. If it's no, just indicate no. Next is, do you have any physical or mental disorder that would require social and or health services other than medication during a stay in Canada? So you need to indicate yes or no. If it's no, just do that and it will grey out this block. If you indicate yes, you need to complete this section here and provide more information. The next section is, have you ever remained beyond the validity of your status, attended school without authorization, or worked without authorization in Canada? So if it's yes, explain why. If it's no, just indicate no. Have you ever been refused a visa or permit, denied entry, or ordered to leave Canada or any other country or territory? Now, if it's happened, don't lie about it. They're going to find out. So just say why it was. Otherwise, indicate no. And then, have you previously applied to enter or remain in Canada? If you have previously applied to enter, if you've previously had a visitor's visa or anything like that, you can say yes or no. And then you can just say, if you have visited Canada before and your visa has, expired in the meantime, or your passport has expired, and with that your visa, you can just write a short explanation of what you've had before. Otherwise, if you haven't, just say no, and it will grey everything out. The next section is, have you ever committed, been arrested for, been charged with, or convicted of any criminal offence in any country or territory? So if it's yes, just explain what happened. If it's no, it will grey that out. Then we get to section 4, which is, did you serve in any military, militia, or civil defense unit, or serve in a security organization or police force? So if it's yes, then explain when, what, how. They will need the following information here. It indicates that if you answered yes, please provide dates of service and countries or territories where you served. So if that's the case, then write it there. Otherwise, no, and it will be grayed out. Section 5 is, are you or have you ever been a member or associated with any political party or other group or organization which has engaged in or advocated violence as a means to achieving a political or religious objective, or which has been associated with criminal activity at any time? You can indicate yes or no. And then the last one is, have you ever witnessed or participated in the ill treatment of prisoners or civilians or any of the other things? You can say yes or no, and then that section is done. Now they also say, if you answered yes to any of questions 3 to 6 above, or upon request of a visa officer, you may, so from there, any of those, if you have answered yes to any of those questions, or upon the request of a visa officer, you may be required to fill out IMM5257 Schedule 1. Now you'll see that in your application, this is an optional document that you can attach, but it's always better to just provide them with as much information as you can beforehand so that they have everything the first time they look at your application and they don't have to come back to you to request something. So the option is there to include it. If you can, just include it and it's done. So then they don't need to contact you and request it. And then we're finally here where they need your signature. So you can read through all of this. They have a question, do you consent to be contacted by the CIC or an organization at CIC? Yes or no, and you can say yes. If you don't want to, you can say no. If they need to contact you, then let them contact you. And then I declare that I have answered all questions in this application fully and truthfully. Now you can put the date right in here, and it is, the year, the month, and the day, whichever it is, the day that you've completed this. And if you need to mail this in, you're going to, after you've validated, you're going to print it out and you're going to sign it here and you're going to mail it into the CIC. Otherwise, if you're doing it electronically, you just include the date. You don't need to sign it electronically here. You just go to validate Obviously, we're going to get a lot of errors now because we haven't completed everything. So they're going to say to us, you know, what is still needed. But that's the one thing that you have to make sure of that you do with these forms is always validate to make sure that it is correct. So you're going to say, okay, and then it's going to indicate to you in red blocks what is still needed. So obviously we haven't completed the information. I've just gone through it with you. So we need to include all of this still in our application. And once we've completed everything, we can validate again. And if everything is there that is needed, it will say yes. In this little block here, under validated, it will say yes. So as soon as it says yes there and you don't get any red blocks, you are ready to save your file and upload it to the IRCC portal. Otherwise, it's just going to indicate no, and you just need to go through your form and see where the red blocks are and complete the information that's still missing. If you've completed all your information and you're happy that you've supplied everything they need from you, you can press validate and it will give you a message saying validation completed successfully. Please print the entire application and sign and date the last page. This page contains barcodes that facilitates data entry of your application. If you are applying online, you do not need to sign your application form by hand. You will be asked to provide an electronic signature once you are ready to transmit your document to CIC. So there you go. And there you have it. And once all of that has been done and you've validated your form, it will state yes here in the corner under Office use only validated, where it's said no before, it will now say yes. And then if you also scroll down and you go to the bottom of your form, you will see that the last page now all of a sudden has these barcodes that they can scan. So please make sure that you validate your form, that it says yes for validated, and that you have these little barcodes, and then you know you are ready to submit. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope this helped you.